I might be crazy, but every now and then I think about how you can either outwardly be yourself, even if it's to your own detriment, in terms of like having traits that aren't desirable by people or aren't very desirable, but at the end of the day, you're being yourself. Now that's not to say like you actively engage in like creepy behaviors that, whether you recognize it or not, make people uncomfortable and you choose not to correct them. But I mean, in terms of like, really, I mean specifically in terms of um, essentially seeking out people to connect with on any level, whether it's friendship or anything further. Right. Ultimately, the traits that you're giving off, whatever energies or vibes or whatever the fuck you're giving off, you have them. You have that regardless of if you show people or not. So the person who's quiet and doesn't really say much and essentially causes people to perceive them as normal. Not that they're even trying to act quote unquote normal, it's just that because they're not giving off anything, people don't know what flags they should be wary of with this, or they don't know what flags they're seeing. They don't know if they're green, they don't know if they're yellow, they don't know if they're red, they don't know anything about this person. So they feel fine. This isn't making any sense. Basically, every now and then I think about how, in a lot of cases in my life, in a lot of situations, if I were just quiet and I never spoke, and I just toned down a lot of myself, then I would be in a much better place. I would be around people that I want to be around. I wouldn't have them floating in my head. I would actually be able to talk to them. It's weird. It's odd. It's very, very odd. It's very, very odd. And then it also just feels odd because it just means on a lot of levels you can't truly express yourself. Even when you want to talk about like extremely deep and uncomfortable and concerning topics, you can't, because people then make judgments about you because you talk about them. And it's beyond like cannibalism or I mean pretty much, yeah, like tab or cannibalism is like a it's like one of those borderline uncomfortable conversations depending on the person. But there's like a good chunk of conversations where you just can't have them without people making assumptions about you as a person. You know, like you can't talk about them at all, especially if it involves like someone partaking in that thing and the actual nuances of those things, like in terms of the harm that comes from it. You know, you literally cannot talk about them or else people will make judgments about you. And it's easy, whoever you are listening to this, it's easy for you to say, oh, well, I wouldn't judge. It's like, yeah, cool, you're one person, but you aren't every single human. You aren't even the nearest 1,000 people around you. For every person that's like you that would actually engage in the conversation and just think of it all as theoretical, even if the person in front of you is a heinous person, you wouldn't treat them any differently. 10 other people around you would then have the most disdained looks on their face and cause a person that's trying to actually have a conversation to feel like shit, which gets no one anywhere. It helps those 10 people feel like they're morally superior. It puts you in a fucked up mindset, and then it puts the other person trying to talk about it in a fucked up mindset. But the only person that could actually cause harm afterwards is the person that's trying to talk about it when they realize they can't talk about it and they go and harm other people. No, I'm talking about myself, even though that kind of sounds like it, but no. I'm thinking about like the person who, and really when I think about conversations like this, it literally just it all boils down to like the fucking, whether they're a teenager or a kid or a young adult or like someone just out of high school or a middle-aged adult or like a really old dude. Basically, those people who are like borderline predators and just deep weirdos, as in like they'll either rape someone one day or they'll prey on a child, or a teenager. Those kind of people. There are so many people like that where they literally do not have a place to go to talk about this shit. They can't at all. You know? Because people will make assumptions about them, you know? And then I feel worse for the people where it's like, where like something fucked up didn't happen to them, and it's just situations where like they just never grew out of, or they're, how do I put it? The people that they, no, not the people that they like, but their attraction to people never grew with their age. You know what I mean? Like they always stayed attracted to the same people of the same age, despite how old they got. You know what I mean? But then you have a lot. I mean, but also those are like rare cases. I think most people that are like that, they actually just choose not to stop themselves. They continuously engage in those thoughts or in those fetishes or in those, I mean, I guess, yeah, just thoughts at the core of it. Because you have to have a thought to be able to go and seek out the fetish. You have to have a thought to go out and seek out actual people to prey on, So it ultimately boils down to the thought. So, yeah. But they never stop themselves, Because there are a lot of people out there that you would never know have had thoughts like that before, and they stopped themselves, and now they're better people for it, you know? But there's a lot of people where they don't stop themselves. Now, there's a lot of people where they don't stop themselves and they never actually harm anyone, but they still have those thoughts in their head, And then I also think about how we're increasingly moving more and more towards, in a sense, a more digital society, in a sense that we will be people of the internet, not as in how we are now, where we all surf the internet all day, every day, but where we will literally be within the internet most of the time, within digital spaces, Because at the end of the day, money is a tool for you to fix your life. And you can make any little thing to make you money. You make some kind of digital thing, digital product, and people will use it. I'd say it's even smarter if it's something that doesn't require much infrastructure, like a single player game, right? You make a quick little single player game that has some kind of depth to it. Excuse me. That has some kind of depth to it, and then you then you release it, and then people play it, and that's it. One, it's an endless stream of income because more people will see it eventually, especially if it's cheap. And then that will give you enough to, or not give you enough, but it will, well, yeah, it will give you something so that you can feed yourself and continue developing more and more games, You could even, so like, for example, I always think of like an RPG of some sort, right? an RPG. It can even be a simple RPG where there's like a few fundamental systems that all kind of work in tandem to create emergent gameplay over time, you know? And then you have that, and let's say you have a character, you have a few fundamental systems that you use to do battle or whatever the fuck, and then you go up a tower of 100 floors. And then you just make DLC, which is just the which is just 100 more floors for $1, 100 more floors for $1, and you just keep doing that over and 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 over again. You could really make you could make the original part. You could make the original version of the game 100 floors. Put that out for free. But before you even put the game out, you put out DLC, or you put the game out for free, get feedback on it, and then you craft the other. You craft 3 DLCs for 300 floors. You know, and the floors could essentially be it could be like 75% text-based RPG and then like 30% visual, you know, if that even makes sense. You essentially get a description of the layout and everything, what's happening, and then you make your decision or whatever the fuck. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I can kind of see this in my head a little bit, kind of, sort of, not really though. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I see it in my head, but I kind of don't see it, but I kind of do, but I kind of don't. The difference is, like, once you make the first 100 floors, it's a lot easier to make DLC because you kind of just, you can kind of just reuse a lot of stuff, if not everything. And you just make 100 more. You're just kind of just adding on levels, basically, if that makes sense, you know? And then you can use all of that to switch it from 2D to 3D, you know? I don't know. I just had thoughts. It's raining outside. I like it when it's raining. It feels nice. Well, it sounds nice. I don't go outside, but yeah. Um, and there was thunder, so that was cool. Those are just some thoughts I had. That's it. Bye bye. Thank you for listening.